2, 1.
Welcome to the Jeremiah Show.
I'm sorry. One more time. 3.
You just like me to.
I do. I love
2.
the way you start the show. I like to hear it more than once. 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Jeremiah Show. Dr. D, hello.
Hi.
Hear you're vaccinated. I'm glad. We can take the glass down maybe next week.
Yeah.
And
I'm vaccinated, inoculated, and I am postulated.
I don't have to wear the bubble suit any longer.
No, you don't have to wear the bubble suit. Although I did like kicking you down the hall. You just roll nicely, bounce off the door.
Made lots of nice snapping noises.
That was fun.
Kat, welcome from Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
Hey.
Mike Gormley joining us from Los Angeles and introducing to the Jeremiah Show today.
Da, 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 da.
Our special guest is Strictly Elizabeth. Strictly speaking, she's Jessica Elizabeth. Jessica Elizabeth is a multi-disciplined artist. She is also the creator of an award-winning short animated film. It's called What Happened to Stephanie?
Uh-huh.
We got to find out. It's a cliffhanger. This was selected and awarded as Best Animation Award winner at the 2021 Los Angeles Film and Script Festival.
Oh, wow.
On YouTube, Dr. D, you can find that up. And by searching What Happened to Stephanie by Strictly Elizabeth, her second album, Contemporary Construction. What a great title. It's set to arrive in May of this year on Data Water Records, distributed by Dashco. Now, Jessica is an architect as well as a musician. Her musical hunger was somewhat satisfied in 2007 by recording an album entitled Cut Them Into Swans. She is good with her titles.
That's neat.
It was recorded under the creative name 181 Powers. She headed for New York City after graduating from the University of Cincinnati in 2003. Jessica Elizabeth artistic release was through song, and she did this in Chelsea churches and post-punk bands around the city. Now that sounds really cool. Needed a little adventure in her life, as if New York City wasn't offering enough, I'm sure, and a new focus on her music. She moved to New Orleans. Her first solo performance took place at the Checkpoint Charlie's in New Orleans, and next, she was led to California, where she found a spirit of resolve that inspired her to take steps towards her own personal healing. She says of that time, I was undergoing EMDR therapy due to some personal traumas, including the death of my husband. The research initiative resulted in a series of videos called Reagan Cities, but also led her to a new creative phase, and that was in San Francisco. Jessica Elizabeth gets around. She knew she needed to tell her own story using her own voice and singing her own song. So in San Francisco, she dedicated herself to this new goal and slowly restarted that creative process. At first, playing and writing songs in her bedroom, just like she had done in her very first days in New York City. Wonder how many artists start out that way and probably finish that way too, writing in their bedrooms. In 2017, she joined the group Sunset Republic, and at the same time, met recording engineer Chris Hughes. She began to work with him on studio recordings of her songs, resulting in the EP Route in Blue, released in 2018. Realizing the healing power of this creative process through music, Jessica set out to make a full-length album titled Shelter in Place, which was released to a great acclaim in 2020 and built a solid following at college radio. And that's where you want to build that following. Now that you're up to speed, we'd like to welcome you, our very special guest, you, Jessica Elizabeth, and have her pick up the story here by telling us about what came next with her EP, What Happened to Stephanie, which is a 3-song EP and includes that short film that we mentioned that won the award last year.
This year.
So
won the awards this year.
This year. That's right. In the spring of this year. I'm
Right.
trying to move past this year already.
Are we all?
I'm just trying to will it to happen. I'm sorry. I
I don't know
apologize.
why.
As we're taping this, she's getting the award tonight.
Oh, wow. What an exciting day.
We get to see it on the big
Tonight.
screen, so that's exciting.
Ooh,
Yeah.
a big screen.
That's great.
Well, so many of these awards and festivals have been virtual and continue to be, because of the circumstances. So it's kind of exciting to have it in real life opportunity.
Yeah. So where is it premiering, or where is it being showcased, and where for
The
award?
festival is called LA Rocks Film Festival. So yeah.
Very cool.
That's
Sure.
happening.
And again, that I'll just correct myself. Thank you, Mike, for catching that. Selected and awarded as Best Animation Award winner, which you will receive tonight at the 2021 Los Angeles Film and Script Festival. Okay, so let's pick up there. We kind of went through your life a little bit there in clips, and I wanted you to pick up the story now. Jessica, welcome to the show again. And how when you did that EP, what happened to Stephanie? Tell us about that process, and tell us about developing not only the film, but the storyboard, the animation, and the 3 great songs that went along with it.
Well, I had started storyboarding music videos for those songs, for especially Baby Come On was the first one. That's the third or the second song in the triptych of videos there. And I originally conceived of it as something that we would do in real life. We had done our first music video for a song called California Bend, which is on Shelter in Place, and learned a lot in that whole process about making music videos, but I was kind of hooked. I really liked it. So I had begun storyboarding all the other songs. And then at the same time, I had made a decision to move down to Los Angeles, and then the pandemic hit. And so there was a lot of kind of turmoil, I guess you could say, and chaos time. But I had also been thinking about the idea of doing animation. A few people had kind of planted that seed with me. And so it started to make sense. I was introduced to Ciro, who's an animator and who I worked with on the film. And we said, all right, well, let's give this a try. And so I kind of went back and looked at Oscillation Friday, which is the first song of the triptych. And we pieced together the story of these 4 characters. And we made that first video as a standalone video and put it out there along with the album that was getting some play on college radio. And then a friend called me who had seen it, Ira Ingvar, and he said, I love this. I absolutely love this. But I've got some ideas, let me add to this. Because at the time, Oscillation Friday was just me and drums, and that was it. And it's interesting because it really was kind of a child of the pandemic, in that we made the whole thing by just sharing files. And actually Ciro and I have never met. We did the whole thing virtually.
Wow.
So, when Ira kind of got involved, it kind of pumped some new energy into all of it. And we said, okay, I kind of had this idea for the triptych, but I was like, okay, let's do it, and kind of put the whole thing together, and was able to put it out as this EP with the new edition with Ira's version of Oscillation Friday.
Jeremiah, you would know Ira from the band Jackie O. He's a guitarist. Yeah.
And he also produced it, and he produced your song, your single, Mike.
Okay.
The one that you wrote.
I want to ask Jessica.
By the way, that has a lot of hits on our SoundCloud.
Ira co-wrote it.
Yeah. Okay. I remember he was involved somehow.
I'm always on the outside when it comes to some of these terms that are being used. I only learned in our last program what an EP was. You'd think I'd know what that is. Extended play is what I've always heard it to be. But anyway, triptych. Please explain that to me.
So it's a series of 3, basically. There's also, I think, a diptych, which is 2, and triptych is a series of 3. You see it a lot in visual arts with painting or photography, even. And what I liked about it was there's this kind of more subliminal progression where the first of the series is more simple and it gets more and more complicated. So we tried to kind of incorporate that into the videos as well.
Well, I worked at a Texaco station when I was in high school, and we used to pop the hood and check people's oils by pulling the triptych.
Okay. Okay. Ira Ingberger, go back to Ira Ingberger. I mean, what a great, did he just find you? He just found the video and then.
We had been working on some other things
Oh, okay.
together. Yeah. So
Yeah, he worked with Bob Dylan, right, Mike? Van Dyke Parks, Danny Elfman, just to name a few. Yeah, great. What a great guy to have in your corner and offering advice. But the video is just amazing. I mean, it's I don't know how an animation, an animated film is put together, but right out of the box as your first go at it, I mean, it's just really incredible.
Well, what's interesting is neither did I. I was just kind of making it up as I went along, and you start with what
Yeah.
and in some ways,
So what did you know?
Making presentations.
Yeah.
So I was used to selling something that was only existed in people's imagination as an architect, right?
So storyboarding.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind
of presenting to a wide variety of stakeholders depending on what their interest in the project was, and so that wasn't unfamiliar to me. And so I just kind of started with that. I kind of literally just started by sketching out what I imagined to be these scenes, and kind of eventually put them into a whole series of actually, when I think about it now, very specific storyboards, almost second by second, which made it really fun to work with Ciro, because he had a lot to go from, but also a lot of freedom then to interpret what were really, I mean, kind of in terms of people, just stick figures and my own kind of mood boards about these characters.
Yeah.
And remember, Jeremiah, we learned not too long ago in our previous program that there are no rules when it comes to art. I mean, maybe some basic stuff, but it's like what she just said. You just kind of make it up as you go along, which is really kind of cool.
Well, it's really a great film, and you deserve the award. So again, congratulations. Let's roll the tape backwards a bit and go back to New York City, if we could. At first, you were pursuing a career in design and architecture. Is that correct? That was your passion. That was what you'd studied and what you were going into. And can you tell us a little bit about this and how the music at that point in your life fit into your artistic creativity and your career?
Well, I always played music. There was never a time from the time I was 10 or 11 that I wasn't in a band of some sort, or a choir or something, or multiple things like that. So it was always how I pretty much spent my free time. So when I made the decision to study architecture, that was the first time in my life where I actually had to put music aside, which was very hard. And looking back on it now, I kind of see that more clearly than I did at the time. But it was very clear that studying architecture was kind of a full-time commitment. There really wasn't a lot of room for other things, and it was something that I wanted to do and I wanted to succeed at. So I kind of was all in with that. But I promised myself that when I was done, when I got my master's degree, that I would go back to music. And I had always wanted to play guitar. And so I promised myself that would be the next thing I tackled, was really learning to play guitar and starting to write my own songs. It's something I wanted to do. And so having kind of the opportunity and the ability to progress my career as a designer, as an architect in New York, but also then, the freedom and the absolute deep well of creative capital that existed there there was so much to discover. And I met so many people in so many facets in my early years there.
Architecture and design is so structured, so disciplined. So there are rules, right? There are mathematical equations and
as you get further into architecture, for sure, and public safety concerns. There's a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Were there similarities? Do you find similarities in the music and writing music and the notes and
sure,
chords and the lyrics? Did that help you? I mean, and I know it helped in the video and in your music videos.
Yeah, I think the answer is probably yes. and I really feel like more often than not, there's more similarities than there are differences between things, just generally speaking, when if you can step back far enough. But yeah, and at the same time, there are differences. I think the one thing that I really appreciate about music is that it really relies and kind of runs on emotion and this kind of sense of magic of, serendipity and circumstance and mistakes, and that type of thing that can translate to design and architecture for sure. But it's more the exception. And with music, I mean, that's the sustenance of it, really, And so being able to have something that kind of lets me get my emotional whatever emotions I'm working out in a way that hopefully resonates with other people and is able to be kind of productive is what I really love about it.
Yeah, I see all those things. I agree with you. At this time in New York City, you would go out and perform in post-punk bands around the city in churches. I mean, that's visually.
If only that were true.
Oh,
that sounds really cool.
Is it not
I think
true?
in the way that things are written, sometimes it's hard to explain the full story.
Right.
But those were both things that were happening in my life at the time, but not at the same time. So I was in a choir that we sang and practiced it in churches. And so that was kind of one musical outlet. And at the same time, I was, playing post-punk music with my friends in practice spaces and
so they weren't both at the same time.
Yeah, so exactly.
I was thinking those are maybe I might go back to church. There were
I know, right?
Punk bands playing there.
What's the difference between regular punk and post-funk? Punk.
Well, I'm not an expert, but Mike might even be able to explain this better. And I guess my understanding, when I think of post-punk, I think more of kind of the wave of artists like REM and other things like that kind of reinterpreted the original idea of punk that was happening in the 70s, especially.
You might call one hardcore punk, and then post-punk is probably smoothed out a little bit. I'm not sure how accurate
wider
that is.
Audience.
You have like Sex Pistols on one side and then like maybe REM or something. Yeah, like an interpretive.
I wouldn't call REM
but yeah,
anywhere near punk, but they may have had a punk attitude, but they're
exactly a sensibility about
they were just punks.
Yeah.
We're just punks.
we love you, REM.
Yes, we do.
We do actually. The Melodia Women's Choir. That's the choir you referred to.
Yeah.
Yes. And Meredith Monk was on your board. Tell us about her. Did she inspire you creatively?
Yeah. As well as many other women that I met through that organization who were very talented. And, I learned so much about that and made some really great friends as well that, still to this day, we were connected through that. And I think there was a lot about, that generation and that group of people and musicians that I didn't really know about. And I want to say John Cage as well, and that kind of, just avant-garde approach to things just really kind of opened me up to what was possible creatively. And seeing a lot of the work that Meredith was doing was just, it was just cool.
Yeah, inspiring.
Yeah. Your
first songwriting partner, Tony Steicher, this was at the same time in New York City. So you're starting to write. You're singing in the choir. You're doing shows, post-punk shows around the city. You've got a writing partner. It sounds like music is coming into your life, creeping in and becoming more and more a part of your life and inspiring your creativity. and then as a writer, as a songwriter, do you prefer writing alone or do you prefer having a partner? How do you approach songwriting?
It depends. I think sometimes there's a need to do it alone, as sometimes unpleasant as it is. It's also kind of that like no one else is really going to be able to get in there and do it. But there's also some joy, and it's fun to write with other people at a certain point too. So yeah.
What's unpleasant about it for you? What are the challenges that you?
Well, I think it's funny. I mean, sometimes it's hard to describe, I guess, but yeah, it's because I think you have to wrestle with the truth, and that can sometimes be really painful. But I think what you come out with in the end is usually makes it worthwhile.
So it's almost a catharsis, or for you, it's almost an experience where you're working through something, and it's personal, right? To share that, I mean, must be difficult and at points.
It's gotten a lot easier. It was much more difficult when I was younger. I was very closed off about it for the most part.
That's one of the things that's made a lot of songs extremely popular and artists is when they come from that space within themselves and they are willing to be that vulnerable. Have you reached a place where it is easier than it used to be, or do you still struggle with being that vulnerable in your songs?
I think it's definitely gotten a lot easier. It's also been an interesting arc because I'm much more sober now in the whole experience than I was previous points in my life.
If just talking about being sober versus, not all the time, did that help the songwriting for you and the performing, and do you find not now being sober and not having that, does it change you artistically for the better?
Yes and no, I guess. I mean, it's still kind of a new thing for me in some ways, but it's definitely less chaotic and less destructive.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, that's better.
Yeah, for sure.
No matter what.
Before we go to the break real quick, if you could just think back to that first solo performance that you had at Checkpoint Charlie's in New Orleans. How did that feel?
I think I blacked out the whole thing. Seriously. I kind of came to, and there was a whole room of people looking at me.
How was the reception from everybody looking at you when you came to? I think we lost the Wi-Fi there. Okay, let's take that break and we will get our special guest. Oh, she's back. You had froze up there. Well, let me have you answer that, Jessica, on the back end here, or the next, after we come back from this real quick break. The new album by Strictly Elizabeth is Contemporary Construction, now in pre-sale and available May 28th. The new single is Coretta. Be sure to check out Strictly Elizabeth's video, What Happened to Stephanie, selected and awarded as Best Animation Award winner at the 2020 Los Angeles Film and Script Festival on YouTube. What Happened to Stephanie. Find Jessica Elizabeth on her website, Strictly Elizabeth, on strictlyelizabeth.com, and follow Strictly Elizabeth on Instagram and Facebook at Strictly Elizabeth. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Okay, perfect. Now, your Wi-Fi went out, so you froze.
Sorry.
That's all right.
No, don't worry about that. Was Kat going to record?
Yeah, and then Kat's going to record it. We're going to drop that. I'm just going to do it once.
You know what's sort of weird is that I can hear you, Jeremiah. I can see you, but your mute button appears to be on.
Oh, Jeremiah's?
Yeah.
That's intentional because he's on a laptop.
Otherwise, I get feedback.
Otherwise, we get echo.
I see. Okay. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't some technical.
No problem.
You're so on it.
That would be terrible, Mike.
Hang on 1 second, guys.
Okay, so I'm just recording what you just did, right?
be quiet just for a second.
Hey, I just want to reset this. Let's see here. Oops.
He's just prepping to get you to the spot, Cat.
There we
Yep.
go. There. And there. Break. Take it out.
I like your background I like your office there, Jessica.
Thanks.
All right, Cat.
Not even virtual, it's real.
I know, it's beautiful. That's where I want to be outside. We should do our show from outside.
Yeah, we should.
I'm just
We're all
making
come
notes.
out there
we're
next
coming
month.
over.
That's right. We're coming over. Hope everybody's been vaccinated. Okay.
Cat,
Cat.
let me see here. Let me
All right.
see.
All right, Cat. I'm just about ready here, although Jeremiah's got something he wants to share.
Let's come back. We're going to talk about, we'll finish up with that first solo performance. And then why don't you bring us back into San Francisco and Los Angeles and kind of California, which catches us up a little closer now before we start talking about that new album. And
All right.
Coretta.
Wait, well, all right, but
So
am I-
basically you'd come into after the first solo performance,
Mhm.
the result was a nice career in design and architecture,
Oh, yeah,
leading to
yeah, yeah.
research and connection between and then I think I wanted to explore that a little bit because that sounded really interesting.
Right. Am I also,
Project in Los Angeles.
I'm still recording this thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we're
And
going to do
then
that here just a second.
And
All
then
right.
you want me to bring us back.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'll count you down for the spot. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1.
The new album by Strictly Elizabeth is Contemporary Construction, now in pre-sale and available May 28th. The new single is Coretta. Be sure to check out Strictly Elizabeth's video called What Happened to Stephanie, selected and awarded as Best Animation Award winner at the 2021 Los Angeles Film and Script Festival. On YouTube, you can find it as What Happened to Stephanie, and find Jessica Elizabeth on her website at strictlyelizabeth.com, and follow Strictly Elizabeth on Instagram and Facebook at Strictly Elizabeth.
She's everywhere.
She's everywhere. She's everywhere.
I just got a note from Mike about your full name, Jessica. Did you want us to use the full name or just Jessica Elizabeth? I thought that was the way it was written up in the bio, but we could
Yeah, that's fine with me.
We can definitely change that if you like going forward. What do you prefer? Jessica Elizabeth Davenport, full introduction like that, or Jessica Elizabeth?
Jessica Elizabeth's fine.
Oh, okay. Thank you for clarifying
I think
that.
we should refer to her as Queen
Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Right.
Um,
I mean,
I like it.
Kat, when we come back right now, I'll bring us back and just follow up on where she froze on that first performance, and then you can take it, Kat.
Yeah.
Okay. Just to finish that up, because I think that's interesting to imagine that blackout. I couldn't get on stage. Can you imagine that? Any of you here besides Jessica getting on stage? Mike, have you ever performed on stage?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Play drum.
Okay. That's is that, I guess that's still, you'd still be nervous, huh? I feel like singing would make you very nervous up front.
I've done that too, but usually
I think it was the fact that they were my own songs. You
Yeah.
know, I'd certainly been on stage singing all sorts of other people's songs before, but not my own.
This is you, and this is
Yeah.
Okay. Bring it. Are you ready, Richard?
I believe that after every rain that falls. Okay, here we go. Move this out of the way. Thank you. Thank you so much. In 3, 2, 1, you're live.
Welcome back to the Jeremiah Show. Our special guest this entire hour is Jessica Elizabeth. She is Strictly Elizabeth. The new album is Contemporary Construction. It's now in pre-sale and available May 28th. Get your copy, pick it up now, get in line. And the new single is Coretta, which we are going to play in its entirety at the end of the program. Jessica Elizabeth just won and is going to the award show tonight. She won the Best Animation Award winner at the 2020 award and the 2021 Los Angeles Film and Script Festival. She's our special guest this hour. Welcome back, Jessica Elizabeth. Before we went to break, we were talking about that first solo performance there in New Orleans, and how that felt. You've been playing with people back up and gospel, choir and different bands around New York City. Now here you're in New Orleans and you've got your own music, your own songs, and you're performing at Checkpoint Charlie's in New Orleans. Tell us a little bit about that religious experience. It sounds like that you went through.
Well, I said I blacked out most of it, really. I barely remember it. I was really, really nervous. And in fact, I probably wouldn't have gotten up there, except that I was talking to another guy at the bar, and we were just kind of hanging out, and he was like, "You're a songwriter, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I write songs." And he's like, "Oh, okay." And before I knew it, he was yelling to the guy on stage, and he's like, "We've got somebody here," and kind of pulled me up there to play. And for this
sounds like a movie.
room of people. Yeah, really. It kind of was in some ways surreal like that. But yeah, so I kind of got dragged up on stage. And I really don't remember most of it, but they asked me back, and I started playing there on the regular, and it was really great. Yeah.
That's cool.
Well, that's a good sign that you did well.
Yeah.
Not that you can remember it.
It was
Now,
yeah.
Are you nervous at every performance still? I mean, I imagine I think most people are still until they get out there and they get that feedback. And how was that audience feedback, by the way, for you when you came to and you see the audience?
It's interesting. I think I'm at a much better place now, but it took me a long time to believe it. I think somebody said, like, at the end of the day, all you really have is self-belief.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me a long time to actually find that for myself. And so,
was there doubt and fear about?
Yeah, it kind of didn't really
and
matter what people said to me. I always had this voice in the back of my head that was like, well, they surely must not be talking about me. They must be talking about somebody else,
right.
Something like that. So it took me a long time to kind of get over that.
It's interesting how opinions, even if they're positive, if you don't believe it, if you're at a point in your life where there's self-doubt or destruction, self-destruction, if you don't believe it, you just tune it out completely. It's interesting how you do that. Now okay, well, we're gonna take one more quick break. Let's just get it out of the way, and then Kat's gonna bring us back, and we're gonna follow you to California and some discoveries that you made there that have helped you as a musician, as an artist, and probably help you write the new album that's out on May 28th, Contemporary Construction by Strictly Elizabeth. We will be right back after the short break.
Okay, we're clear. Stand by.
So when we go back, can I give you a little update on awards given to this short, because there's a couple we haven't even mentioned yet. She says 5 or 6 awards have already happened.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, let me think. Yeah, this is probably a good spot to do that. And then most of the rest of the interview, I'd just like to kind of deconstruct the album, the music, and talk about the new stuff. Right? Does that sound good, Mike?
Sure.
So Kat can do that when we come back. We'll just do these updates, and then Kat, you can bring us back, introduce Mike, and we'll go from there.
Yeah.
Sound good? And then come back to Kat.
Yeah, that's it. That's the ticket. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
And
Here we go.
This is break number 2, right? We're coming back in with Santa Monica.
We are coming back in with Santa Monica.
Yeah,
yes,
we forgot to announce the music.
That's
Yeah.
all right. Here we go. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. You're live.
Welcome back to the Jeremiah Show. We're here with Jessica Elizabeth from Strictly Elizabeth, and you just heard her cover of an Everclear song called Santa Monica, which is pretty cool. We love Everclear.
Yeah, what's interesting, Jessica, is that both Kat and I knew Alex. Art, Alex. We knew Art from. We knew him really well. No, we knew Art from Santa Monica, actually, many years ago.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm going to toss it over to Mike. We're going to talk a little bit more in depth about some of the awards that that your short film has picked up. I want to make sure we get the full list for folks because it's going to clean it up.
We've been talking about the award that Jessica's getting tonight as we tape, which is probably as we hear it a week prior. But there are actually 5 awards that this film received this year alone.
Wow.
It's well, there's a Los Angeles Film Award. That was the best music video. Venice Short Film Awards. Los Angeles Film and Script Festival, Best Animation. That's the one she's picking up tonight. And the most recent one is the San Francisco Indie Short Festival. So this little film that she slapped together, sort of, is it's making its own way through down the path of award ceremonies. It's and I bet you more will be coming our way.
Yeah, kind of a smart way to, to fold in your music, to diversify and, give, do a short film, pack it with your music. And then it's kind of like, you're really spreading yourself out there, which is great. You're just maximizing ears and eyeballs, which is what it's all about, apparently.
Well, yeah, it gives it another dimension too, artistically, which has been a lot more rewarding and fulfilling than I think maybe I thought when I'd started doing that. Yeah.
But no surprise, really, just because of you are diverse. You have that background, you have the art and the design and the architecture. And so it makes sense that you like, I feel like I'm not super surprised that you're just cleaning up. So congratulations, just officially. I really am super impressed.
Architecture is a kind of an art form, right? So it's really not, I mean, it's a very different art form, but it's not out of the realm of an artist being involved in that.
Yeah. To me, it makes perfect sense. So we last left off, you're in New Orleans, blacking out your first performance, but you do eventually end up in California. Can you walk us through, just the high points of how you get from there to there?
Well, I mean, there's a lot that happened, time-wise. I mean, that's about 14 years of my life between those. So
I want to hear it. Start with Monday. What happened on Monday?
What did you eat?
I was actually working on a project in Hong Kong, and I was working with a team in San Francisco, and so I really enjoyed that, and I had some family in San Francisco, and just some other interests of mine that were more on the frontier of design and kind of forward thinking about sustainability and regenerative design. And I just felt like California was a place I could grow, So decided to pick up and move out west.
Okay. And then that took you to specifically the transportation systems and that project where you kind of involve human health. And that can you explain that a little bit to me, how those two play together?
Sure. So the projects I was working on in New York were large transportation infrastructure projects and city planning projects. That was one of the projects in Hong Kong. I was working on a master plan at the airport there. And I was just feeling a little empty in terms of what I was doing in the field, and started looking for a new kind of something, new inspiration, I guess. And I came across this term active design, and I thought, well, what is that? Ended up going to a conference and was just completely blown away by what I was hearing, because it just made so much sense. I mean, some of it is very obvious, but the connection between our health as human beings and our environment. And that was something that people weren't really talking about. And even in the highest levels of sustainability, we weren't talking about that. It was so engineering focused, air, water, energy. Yeah.
Can you give an example of what active design is?
It's basically biking and walking. It's not that it's not complicated. Walking up the stairs instead of taking the elevator. I mean, maybe
Gotcha.
that's what was so profound about it, is that it was so obvious.
You don't
right?
have to over-engineer things. We're just
Exactly,
a bunch of
but
humans.
it was putting the human being at the center instead of all of the math and all of the engineering and all of the other things that we've kind of engineered ourselves into a corner,
And that inspired the music, right? That inspired.
Well, eventually it did, because I started thinking about my own health and my own well-being. And I kind of was like, well, I really need to, I think maybe just, look in the mirror about myself and had to wrestle with some things. My husband's death was really difficult. And I mean, I had a lot of self-reckoning to do and work to do. And luckily, I was able to find the frontiers of mental health as well here in California. You had mentioned EMDR, and I credit that to so much of my progress and being able to come through some of that trauma.
Can you describe that? Can you describe what EMDR is?
Oh, well, I'm certainly not
well, from your experience.
I can help you because
but
I've actually done it as well. So I'll help fill in the gaps for Jessica as well. It's great.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the metaphor is that it's kind of like going back to a wound that hasn't healed properly. So let's say you broke your leg and the bone was never really reset properly. And so it's always kind of bothering you. There's always a pain there. It's like, it's always causing more problems. And so sometimes you have to go back and revisit it and get in there and like maybe even re-break the bone, but to set it properly so that you can move forward and let it actually heal. So it's metaphorically doing that with mental things. So if there was trauma in your past that you never really dealt with, you weren't able to figure out, it's a way of, it has to do with eye motion too.
It's bilateral. It's bilateral stimulation. So basically, anytime, like you could take your fingers and just touch one side to the other. And when you do that, both sides of the brain open up and they actually start to talk to each other. So anytime you're bilaterally stimulating, you can hold on to little buzzers that vibrate one side to each side. But anytime, and so while you're working through this specific trauma, you have that bilateral stimulation and your whole brain is just like, let's party, let's figure this out. And another metaphor, a long time ago, I survived a face-to-face encounter with an adult grizzly bear.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And it provided years of just horrible, horrible nightmares. It was just very obviously traumatic. And I did EMDR to basically, you can picture it as like there's a trauma that's floating around there that belongs in a filing cabinet, and that you got to get that file and stick it in the cabinet. And that's what EMDR does, is it just files it away for you. And I can talk about it now and I don't cry, and I can talk about it and I don't shake, and it's filed away. It happened. I'm here, but I've faced it. And so, it's just a really, really wonderful therapy. It's very simple to do. It's not complicated.
But it is painful. I would say that going back and revisiting that pain is not easy. And that is one thing that keeps people from doing it, because you have to revisit the pain. But once you get through it, you feel better,
Amen. Yeah. There is that part where you do have to dive back in. Yeah.
And did music play a part of this?
I think it was just a really good outlet, and like I said, it's always been a part of my life. It's always been something that I needed to do. And I think especially after my husband's death, it wasn't just something I needed to play music again. I didn't think then that it would lead to the things that are happening now. But that kind of goes back to our conversation about self-belief, and kind of when I kind of went back and started writing again and kind of began where I ended, and then having people in my life who kept encouraging me, and finding other people in San Francisco, especially, who continued to encourage me to keep going. And, one thing just kind of led to another.
It's interesting when I, did research and looked into your background. A lyric from another band. I apologize to quote another band on your show, but this struck me. This reminded me a little bit of your path. It felt like this lyric made me think of you. And tell me if it strikes a chord at all.
Okay.
Well, I woke up. It's Counting Crows. Well, I woke up in mid-afternoon because that's when it all hurts the most. I dream I never know anyone at the party, and I'm always the host. If dreams are like movies, then memories are films about ghosts. You can never escape. You can only move south down the coast. It made me think of maybe, was that a part of those lyrics? Made me think of, your journey moving from city to city and searching and then finally finding what you were looking for.
Something like that. I mean, I love those lyrics. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
We're talking and talking to Jessica Elizabeth.
That's a no.
No. Okay. Cut the stalking. We are just talking
That's
with
right.
Jessica Elizabeth, such a talented artist. Kat, what are we going to listen to on the way out?
We are going out to Dogs and Traps.
We'll be right back after this break.
We're clear.
Okay. Let's talk. I want to talk Coretta Scott King and it looks like there's a new single. I'm on your Facebook page. And I love some of your quotes here, some of your lyrics, but there's a new single coming out from Contemporary Construction. You and Free. That is that the first
That's
release?
right.
Okay. So I guess we probably don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but that would be a great one to even play when you release it on the show again, and we could re-air your interview or do a little.
Yeah, I would love that.
Okay. But let's talk Coretta Scott King and that song and dissect that a little bit. And Kat, do you want to do that, or do you want me to bring us back and do that?
I can bring us back and start it.
Okay, you see those questions.
It's so cool that you know about EMDR too. That's awesome.
I saw that in your notes and I was like, ooh, I love it. Because it's very rare to find someone that knows what it is, or even more has actually done it and that it's, benefited them. So.
And I've actually had people on my program talk about it. I know what it is. I just wanted to have, for our listeners, to have it explained a little bit.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating process. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1. You're live.
Welcome back to the Jeremiah Show. We're here with Jessica Elizabeth, and you just heard What Happened to Stephanie, which is also the title of the short film that we've been talking about, bragging about.
And I'm going to play what the clip that we just played is about 1:42. I'm going to play that same amount at the very end of the show here of the video on the YouTube channel. So you can watch that on the YouTube video. You can watch part of it and then go and watch the entire What Happened to Stephanie official music video that has won so many awards. Back to you, Kat.
Thank you, Jeremiah.
You're welcome.
So let's talk about, let's make sure we spend some time talking about the album. So it's almost all original tunes, right? And there's an ode to Coretta Scott King called Coretta. Tell us about Coretta and what inspired you. I mean, other than the obvious, right? But like for you personally, tell us what led to that.
Well, that song had its beginnings a while ago. I started writing that song maybe 10 or 11 years ago, before I met my husband. And, it was kind of almost given to me as a dare by a friend. We were talking about songwriting and other things. And so I didn't really think much of it when I first started writing it. But my original concept was, believe it or not, was thinking of her at the funeral of Martin Luther King, and what maybe she might have been thinking or feeling in that moment. And, coming back to that song and wanting to finish it, after my husband's death, I had this whole other perspective on it. And so the song really took on a new meaning. And that's where the chorus really came from, and thinking about, the legacy of love and, what you share with another person. And I also learned a lot more about her and coming back to the song than I really knew previously, and just what an important person she was in her own right, and the impact that she's had on society. And yeah, so so that's a little bit about Coretta.
So did you work with Shane Solosky on producing? He's the one that produced the entire album?
Almost
Or
all of
just
it.
almost
Yeah,
all of it.
except for
Yeah.
one track. Yeah.
Okay. Well, tell us a little bit about Shane.
So again, it was kind of a serendipitous moment in that we met and started working together right before the pandemic, and it was kind of the work we did ended up, you know, kind of becoming the result of this isolation and other kinds of really deep thinking, right? That I don't think maybe would have happened otherwise. And he was just such a great collaborator and was really able to kind of smooth out and hone the edges and kind of shape what had already been started. And I'm really proud of the work we did together.
Tell us about choosing the Everclear song Santa Monica. Why did you specifically choose that one?
I was this was when I was still living in San Francisco. I used to go running in Ocean Beach a lot. I don't run so much anymore now because of my knees, but at the time I was, and it was really keeping me sane for a while. And that song, I always liked that song, and it just kind of came on. I was listening to like a playlist of like 90s hits or something, and it just kind of stopped me in my tracks, you know, because that line, "I'm still living with your ghost," I realized, wow, I'm still living with the ghost of my husband. He and I used to run together, and I realized that me going out running was me still living with him. You know, he was right there with me. And so at that moment I was like, it would be cool to do my own version of this song. And I kind of tucked that idea away. I didn't know how or when that would ever happen until we started making this record, and the idea of doing some covers came up, and I thought, well, let me go see what happens with Santa Monica. And I kind of made a little demo at home with just me and the keyboard, that little keyboard part and the single guitar line. And yeah, Shane and I brought it to life.
Yeah. And then, Jeremiah, did you have a question?
I was just gonna. I really like what you did with the song, and I also am just thinking about what you just said, living with your ghost, and all the stuff that you're going through over the last few years, where you're coming into the artist that we're able to listen to and get to know today. At what point did you realize that that you needed to tell your own story using your own voice and singing your own songs? At what point did it really become apparent to you that this was what you will be doing and should be doing?
There's kind of multiple points along the line, but one profound moment looking back, I was working on the Regen Cities research project, and we had started doing some voiceovers for the video that we were doing. Again, I was just kind of jumping in the deep end, not really knowing what we were doing, and I was feeling really sheepish about speaking about it, even though I'd written all the narrative and all the story that went along with it. And I was in front of a microphone again for the first time in like years, in front of other people, and I just thought, I'm, you know, this is like, I'm in the right place doing the wrong thing, you know.
Like something is off.
And that, again, it took a while for it all to come together, but that was one of the first moments where I was just like, okay, something's not aligned here.
Yeah.
Well, we're
Thank
glad
goodness you
did.
had that.
Yeah. Thank you.
I love it. Well, you also did Billy Joel's Big Shot. I was just jamming last night, making some dinner, having some nice wine to Billy Joel. So talk about why that song, why Billy Joel?
That was a suggestion that came from Shane, actually. He and I talked a lot about maybe what cover songs we do, and we went through a lot. And when he brought it up at first, I was like, And then, you know, I listened to it again and I thought about it, and I was like, okay, like I think I can relate to this in a way that maybe I wouldn't have seen. I think he saw something in it and probably something in me that I couldn't see myself with that song.
Mhm.
But I really and looking into it, that the song was written about his experience with Mick Jagger's wife at the time, and kind of his take on maybe a conversation that he necessarily wasn't a part of, but what he thought it might have been like, something like that.
Yeah.
I thought there was a lot of depth there.
Some meat on the bones in that
Yeah.
one. Yeah. Kind of.
It's a great arrangement of the song. Did you arrange it, or did Shane was in there? How did that come about?
That was mostly Shane. Yeah. I mean, we were, it was always a collaborative spirit in the studio for sure, but he had a real vision for how that could come together with the strings. And again, when I did the kind of demo, I just had this little piano part that we kind of turned into this mellotron voicing in the background there. And we brought in Eliza James, who also plays on You and Free, and she's got a quartet here in Los Angeles. And yeah, it was a good time.
And producer and musician Shane Solosky, he worked with Brian Wilson and Five for Fighting. He's the producer we're talking about that worked with you on Contemporary Construction, the new album.
Yeah.
Contemporary Construction has an architectural ring to it.
Yeah, it does.
Mm-hmm.
It does.
And that's got to come from that part of your past in some way.
Yeah, because I had just started working with Shane, and I was looking. I keep everything in these binders in terms of me being organized. And usually when I start a new project or a new collection of things, I go out and I'll buy a new binder and throw it all in there. But because we were quarantined, I didn't feel like I could go down to the store or whatever. So I was looking through this box. I was like, I'm sure I have a binder in here somewhere. And I found one, and I opened it, and it had all these drawings of details and photographs from buildings and things. And I just pulled all the papers out and threw them because I was late usually. And I just took the binder, and then we were at the studio, and I closed it, and I looked at the cover, and it was a binder from college. And the title of the binder was Contemporary Construction, because that was a class that I was taking at the time. And I thought, well, isn't this appropriate? Because we're
How right you were, Mike.
constructing songs here together. And I was learning all sorts of new and modern ways to put these parts together. So
very cool.
That's beautiful.
I just have also asking, just given the circumstances, is Strictly Elizabeth looking at live performance or online performance, or what's coming up from that side?
Yes.
Where can we stalk you?
Well, we're going to have a live performance on May 27th in celebration of releasing the record. So that'll be all songs off the new record. And we're going to do that on Thursday night, because the record will be live here on the West Coast that night at 9 p.m. And then hopefully we'll be able to play some shows here soon. I think there's a bit of a scramble in terms of what's possible, but yeah, really can't wait to play for people.
So if you're listening to this on radio, we will be airing this show the night on that Thursday. So have some fun, and then the album, pick up the album, pre-order now, pick it up on Friday the next day if you're listening on radio, and the podcast goes up today. So you got a week to prepare, to make your account, get your babysitters or whatever, and get out there and have some fun.
By the way, there was a very creative artist. I saw this on the CBS Sunday morning program. He actually held a concert with an audience, limited, of course, but he did it in a very unique way where it was 100% safe for everybody. Everybody, or couples even, were inside these giant plastic balls, and so was he. And that's how he performed, and they were able to move about and have a great time.
I think that was Flaming Lips.
Flaming Lips.
Flaming Lips. That's absolutely right. Yeah, I thought that was one of the most creative concepts. But I don't think we need to do that anymore.
I think Strictly Elizabeth should perform it like a Frank Lloyd Wright house or some cool architecture.
Hey, go to Gamage in Tempe, Arizona.
They had people walking through the crowd in case you had to go to the bathroom, they'd open it up for you.
Well,
Yeah.
you'd have a little sign. I
Yeah,
have to
there you go.
pee.
That's right. That's right.
I'm too hot.
Boy, but how would you like to perform at Grady Gamage Auditorium in Tempe, Arizona?
No, thank
Oh.
you. And those balls,
No,
or
no.
just in general.
Well,
Hey,
you
well,
mentioned
listen.
Frank Lloyd Wright.
Oh,
I
okay.
could tell
We're
too.
all over the place.
I know.
But Jessica, Elizabeth, it's been such a great hour getting to know you a little bit better. Strictly Elizabeth.
Mhm.
And is there anything, final words from you before we play on our YouTube recording of this? You're not able to hear the music on the YouTube interview. So we're actually going to play a little bit of what happened to Stephanie, the official music video that has won so many awards. And rightly so. Hats off again and congratulations. On the radio version and the podcast version, you're going to hear Coretta in its entirety. So they're both a little bit different here, and all the music on the interview on the radio and the podcast is from Strictly Elizabeth. Any final words? Anybody you'd like to thank or mention?
Don't
Well,
forget
of
the
course.
Academy.
Yeah,
I
don't
would
forget-
like
yeah.
to thank Mike for all of his support and for being here and just for being a wonderful presence in my life
Yes,
for sure.
we all thank
Yeah.
Mike.
Yes.
We all bow down.
Yes, we do.
We love him. Look at that smile.
I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy.
Mhm.
And the rest of the Academy.
And
Hey,
you know,
look,
and the rest
are
of
you gonna-
the world of Strictly Elizabeth.
Yes.
You
There
know?
you
Yeah.
All the
Are you
fans.
the video you play? Are you playing Coretta or are you playing Stephanie?
What happened to Stephanie? I'm hoping that I can convince Jessica Elizabeth to set it up for us a little bit. Tell us a little
one
bit of the
quick
story.
thing to listeners and viewers. I know we're out of time, but Coretta video is really interesting because it features the making of a mural of Coretta Scott King, but it's a robot that's creating the mural.
Oh,
Hmm.
cool.
And so that's part of the video. It's really fun to watch. It's
Would
really
you prefer I
Look,
play
right.
that? That would match up with the radio. It doesn't matter to me. Either one, whatever you guys would like me to play.
You could play Coretta.
Yeah, play Coretta. That's
Okay.
a
Yeah.
single to it.
So
That's
talk
all.
for a minute while I find it.
All right. This is the Jeremiah Show, and we're here with Strictly Elizabeth, Kat, and Mike Gormley, and Jeremiah Higgins, and yours truly.
I found it.
And
Okay,
there you
so
go.
that was set up. Do you want to add anything to Mike's setup there before we press play? And by the way, we'll all still be on the video as it plays, just so you know.
You know how to share, correct?
I'm pretty sure I do.
Excellent. Excellent. Anytime you're
I've
ready.
done
I don't
it
know
from-
if I have anything to add except, welcome to the world of Strictly Elizabeth.
There you go.
Yeah.
I like that word.
Okay.
Don't
And
even
without
need a rocket ship.
further ado, here is
Go for it.
Coretta by Strictly Elizabeth.
Hey there, Coretta, looking pretty good in the front row. Is that a new dress? Did you put it on for the big show? Hey there, Coretta, see a sweat pouring down your forehead. Is that a Bible? Maybe later on we could both find Jesus. I understand one and only. That kind of love is legendary. That torch will keep on burning over.
That was Coretta by Strictly Elizabeth. That was a great video. Thank you for sharing it with us. Thank you for sharing the hour with us, Jessica, and
Oh,
your
thanks for
music.
having me.
Yeah, and good luck tonight at the award show. We will look forward to the release of your new album. Everybody, listen more, communicate, and evolve. Have a great week.